Ladies and gentlemen, we are on to the final four. This, I guess, would be the kind of traditional four-team playoff, if you will. The format, however, is a little bit different for this. It is not a doubleheader, which is very disappointing, but because of the NFL and the wild card weekend, the first game will be on Thursday night, next Thursday. So that game will be taking place on the 9th, and that's this game. It's Notre Dame taking on Penn State. There was some talk maybe to push this game back because the Notre Dame game originally got postponed today in New Orleans, but they're keeping it as is. It will be 1 week of rest for Notre Dame, but Penn State will have more rest coming into this game. It's the Orange Bowl. It will be played in Florida at Hard Rock Stadium, so an open stadium. 7:30 start time. Notre Dame sitting 1.5 point favorites. Basically the exact same situation as the Georgia game. I think Notre Dame was also 1.5 point favorites or like 1 point favorites in that one. Very, very close. Notre Dame, a slight advantage in terms of the analytics. You look at Notre Dame in their matchup against Georgia. Honestly, I was really not impressed. It's good for Notre Dame's brand. There's no doubt about it. Beating an SEC team. They really won in dominant fashion. But if you look at that game, Notre Dame had like 215 yards of offense. I mean, listen, you'll win. You'll against an SEC team that's really talented. You'll take that. But it was more so Georgia, the Carson Beck situation. People were wondering. I mean, there were a lot of Georgia fans, to be fair to Notre Dame, that were kind of happy that Beck was not going to play. They thought that Stockton was going to be better. Turned out to not be the case at all. But with Notre Dame, my biggest concern is the same thing it's always been. They've got very limited skill position talent on the outside. Also, Riley Leonard threw for like 80 yards. Obviously, in this game, he's going to be running a ton, I'm sure. They're going to be using that dual threat component against Penn State. These teams, to me, are pretty evenly matched. I will say Penn State definitely has more upside in terms of offensive talent with Tyler Warren. I would say he's the best offensive player in this game, no doubt about it. And listen, it's going to be a good game. I will say I'm going to take Notre Dame to win this one. Lower scoring, 24-17. Penn State against Boise State. I was really not impressed. I mean, the final score was 31-14. But if you look at that game, I think Boise State ended up outgaining Penn State. And also, there was a touchdown where Boise State was going to bring the game within 3 points, I believe late in the third quarter, that got called back on a face mask. And to me, Boise State played way better than the final score indicated. Penn State did run the ball very well, and that's something that Penn State does a good job with, running the football and also defending the run. And I think Penn State's defense, we'll see if Abdul Carter is going to play. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. Very important defensive end. He had a really good game against Ohio State, I remember. But there's question marks. I'm guessing he's going to try and gut it out considering the matchup. It is kind of funny. This is a 6v7 matchup. It's just the seeding was so wonky this year. They're going to have to change the way the auto bids and things like that are done. But I'm going to take Notre Dame. Honestly, I'm going for a perfect bracket. I am. If Notre Dame wins this game and, I did pick them to go to the national title and lose the national title. So, I did pick this matchup. I predicted it, Notre Dame versus Penn State, and I want to get a perfect bracket. And to be honest, I mean, this is a pick'em game. You could argue that Penn State overall has more offensive talent and is more complete because the issue is, honestly, both of these teams really lack at receiver. But I would say Penn State may be a little bit more talented on the offensive side of the ball with Warren and with their running game. But Notre Dame has a complete team. They've got a really solid defense. Yes, they shut down Georgia. That's impressive, but you also have to understand it was with a backup QB. But to me, these two teams are very, very evenly matched. Very evenly matched. Would not surprise me if it came down to maybe overtime or a walk-off field goal or something like that. But you have to look at this and you understand with Notre Dame, you beat Indiana at home. That was an impressive win. Whether or not people think Indiana should have made it, I think it's very clear at this point it really wouldn't have mattered. The SEC teams were not very good. And then they ended up beating Georgia. Solid win, but it's with a backup quarterback. And then Penn State, they beat SMU at home. Pretty obvious, win there. SMU kind of self-destructed. But Penn State's defense, you got to give them credit. And then they beat Boise State. Both of these paths are not the toughest, but I will be taking Notre Dame to win this game. Moving on to the next matchup. This is the heavyweight battle, the Cotton Bowl. This game will be at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, so in Texas, and so almost like a home game for Texas. But even when a game is located within the same region as a team. It always seems like it's like a 50-50 neutral game, and I'm guessing that's what this is going to be. Ohio State coming in as the 8 seed, Texas is the 5 seed. Ohio State, it's pretty crazy. The 6-point favorites, but the analytics have Texas at a 51% chance. It just goes to show you the fact that Ohio State is finally playing up to their level that we all thought they were going to at the beginning of the season. You can see the adjustment that Vegas has had to make. A 6-point spread, but Texas a 51% chance. And yeah, I mean, you look at Ohio State coming into this game, they are by far the hottest team in college football. I think pretty much all of us would agree right now they're the odds-on favorite to win the national title. They look like a total juggernaut. I mean, they are fully complete. Their defense, I mean, the pass rushers now, JTT, Jack Sawyer playing well, the interior defensive linemen, Tyleik Williams, the linebackers, Cody Simon, their entire defense. You've got Caleb Downs, and then the offense, obviously the receivers, Will Howard playing like the best quarterback in college football right now, the running back tandem, the offensive line starting to play better. I mean, the entire team is just loaded right now, and they're finally playing to standard. And you take a look at Texas with Quinn Ewers, Bond, the receiver. Apparently, he was going to come back. He didn't catch a single pass against Arizona State. I mean, Texas did control Arizona State. They kind of got a fluky touchdown in the first half that helped them, but they were up 24-8 into the fourth quarter, and then Arizona State scored late and then ended up tying the game. And honestly, Texas probably should have lost that game. The not called targeting penalty, as well as the overtime 4th and 13, or I think it might have been 4th and 18. Now it's 4th and 13, but I don't know how Arizona State allows that. But either way, to me, Texas comes into this game with kind of the narrative that they're a little bit of a fraudulent team. They've had a strange year to where they had a very, very easy in-conference schedule. I mean, they did face Michigan, which turned out to be kind of a good win because you look at Michigan ending the season, but that was way early in the season. The other problem for Texas is you look at what happened with Georgia against Notre Dame. Texas lost to Georgia. And you could say, well, they had Carson Beck for most of that game, but still, I don't know, man. The SEC to me is it's just not there this year. The Big Ten has been obviously the better conference. We see that in the playoff. We see that with Ohio State destroying Tennessee. Then, of course, Ohio State faces Oregon and just crushes them. And yeah, to me, Texas just really hasn't beaten anyone. They lost to Georgia twice. Turns out Georgia's not that great. I think this is pretty obvious. Ohio State's going to easily win this game, and it wouldn't surprise me if the score was even worse than this. I've got it at 37-21. The thing with Texas is I wonder if Ewers struggled early on in this game if they would try Arch Manning. It's funny because these two teams face each other week 1 next year at Ohio Stadium. So it'll be a rematch no matter what, and that's probably obviously going to have Arch Manning going up against whoever Ohio State ends up going with, probably Julian Sayin. But I mean, to me, both of these teams are trending in different directions. Yes, Texas, they beat Clemson, but even that game was like Clemson had a bunch of yards on offense. They kept it relatively close. And then you have the game against Arizona State, a game in which you give up a big lead, and then you probably should have lost in overtime. You end up winning in double overtime. Ohio State, on the other hand, is just destroying teams. I mean, the two teams that they've been, this is a tough path too. You face Tennessee, you would figure quality SEC team. I mean, there were so many SEC people talking like Tennessee was going to beat Ohio State and they were going to take over the state, and Ohio State just annihilated them. And then they annihilated Oregon in a game where everyone was shocked they were 2-point favorites. How is that possible? And they end up winning by 20 points and easily could have won that game by 30 points. And I mean, this game could be even more ugly than this. I think it's very obvious Ohio State is going to destroy Texas and then very likely destroy Notre Dame. I don't really see any other option at this point, honestly. This seems pretty straightforward to me. I mean, it is, who really knows? It's college football, but Texas throughout the year has been basically the same exact team. Yes, they've got a very impressive record. They only lost 2 games, but it's like they really don't have any crazy good wins. Arizona State is not a world beater. They allowed 510 yards of total offense to Arizona State. Yes, Arizona State was playing catch up, but still, I think Ohio State is by far the best team right now, and just the momentum that they have. They're pretty much fully healthy. I mean, outside of obviously the 2 offensive linemen, but I think Ohio State ends up winning this game relatively easily. And remember, it is disappointing that this is the format now, because I do like when they have the when it was the original 14 playoff, you would have the first game happening at 4 o'clock and then the next game at 8 o'clock. I liked when they were back to back rather than just one a day. It just, I don't know, it just felt like it was kind of vibed better that way. But they really can't do that now because of the NFL playoffs and just the fact that these games are happening later on, because normally the 14 playoff would happen right around New Year's. Well, that was the second round. And obviously, there are going to be some changes to the playoff system and everything like that. They're probably going to expand it to 14 teams. I don't know if they really need to change the seeding and the way the whole structure is done, at least this year, and kind of like an emergency thing. But if Ohio State beats Texas, Notre Dame beats Penn State, and then Ohio State beats Notre Dame, I will have a perfect playoff bracket. And so that's what I think is going to happen. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.